We've got all the news right here.
I'm gonna stop you right there. I see you about to settle on a day-old donut for breakfast. Well, this is a chick intervention. Because McChicken biscuits and Chicken McGriddles are now at McDonald's. So just hit that drive-thru and change your life. For breakfast, you got this. Wake up breakfast.
Say good morning to McChicken for breakfast. Right now at your local McDonald's, you can mix and match 2 Chicken McGriddles or McChicken biscuits for just $3. Price and participation may vary at participating McDonald's for a limited time.
Welcome, readers. Today on Book Chat, joining me is my Buddy Reads co-host, Classy Green. We'll be discussing the audiobook version of the thriller title, The Last Sister by Kendra Elliott. Stay tuned. Hey everyone, I'm your host, Tamara Ford, and thank you for downloading this month's Buddy Read discussion featured here on the Shelf Addiction Podcast. If you're new here, every week we get bookish with book discussions, book review shelf bites, and more. If you're wondering, what is a Buddy Read? This feature is where Classy and I select a thriller or mystery title that we both are interested in. Then we have a candid conversation about that book or audiobook. We even discuss it in our Facebook group, Shelf Addiction Official, during a live chat. So grab a glass of wine or a cocktail, even a cup of tea or coffee, whatever it is, grab your drink of choice and settle in for this fun discussion. As always with book chats, there is a spoiler alert in effect. You've been warned. And of course, don't miss out on our movie adaptation fantasy casting toward the end of this podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please support the podcast by sharing it with one book nerd friend or on your favorite social media space. That would really help me out, and I appreciate you. The uncut video version of this podcast is available now on Patreon. Join us there for exclusive videos, including the podcast after shows. You can also find Classy and myself on Instagram and Twitter. If you've read the book or listened to the audiobook and would like to contribute to the conversation, be sure to join the Shelf Addiction Official Facebook group. I hope to hear your thoughts on this discussion. The links for everything I've mentioned are below in the show notes. Hey guys, welcome back to another Buddy Read discussion. We've got a lot to cover today, so we're going to jump right on in. Joining me is the Buddy Read feature co-host, Classy Green. Welcome back, Classy.
Hi, Tamara. Hi, everyone.
Hey. So today we are discussing the audiobook version of The Last Sister, written by Kendra Elliott, narrated by Cassandra Campbell and Michael Naramore. Apparently this is first in series, and I didn't realize that initially. The audiobook length is 10 hours and 3 minutes, the unabridged version, that is. And the release date was January 14th, 2020, and the publisher is Brilliance Audio. But before we get started, Classy is going to share the synopsis with us. So would you mind doing that, Classy?
Absolutely. 3 sisters' secrets collide in a shocking novel of suspense by the Wall Street Journal and Amazon charts bestselling author of the Mercy Kilpatrick series. 20 years ago, Emily Mills' father was murdered, and she found his body hanging in the backyard. Her young sister, Madison, claims she was asleep in her room. Her older sister, Tara, claims she was out with friends. The tragedy drove their mother to suicide and Tara to leave town forever. The killer was caught. The case was closed. Ever since, Emily and Madison have tried to forget what happened that night until an eerily similar murder brings it all back. It also brings FBI Special Agent Xander Wells to the Oregon logging town. As eager as he is to solve the brutal double slaying, he is just as intrigued with the mystery of Emily's and her sister's past. When more blood is shed, Xander suspects there's a secret buried in this town no one wants unearthed. Is it something Emily and Madison don't know or aren't telling? And Tara? Maybe Emily can't bear to find her because when Tara disappeared, she took a secret of her own with her.
Okay. So if you are not a Patreon member, then you can't see the expressions on our face as we are talking about some of this book. So
right.
You're missing out on that part, but we are going to be as descriptive as we usually are. So I'm sure you'll hear the tone in our voices as we talk about this book. So we did get this book from a publisher in exchange for an honest review. And we are going to do just that, as we always do. So I wanted to start off by talking about the title, The Last Sister. I don't know what the title's about exactly. How about you, Classy? Do you know
No.
how it ties in? Okay.
No. And now I kind of get what you were referring to when you were saying, we discuss the book, everyone. Every once in a while, when it's really good, we chit chat, we text each other. This one we didn't do too much about, but you did mention about Madison, and Madison is the last sister. So yeah.
Well, she's the youngest sister, but I guess she's the last sister too.
Right, and I would consider her the last sister. I mean, whenever you're talking about a family, it's either the youngest or the last. That's the last child, So yeah, the title, I think, does not correlate or coincide with this book. I think they could have picked another title. I believe it was mentioned in the book.
Okay.
I believe it was, because that's something that I always kind of look for. Like, will they throw in the title of the book in the reading? And I think I remember it, but I don't know where.
Me neither. I don't recall it. And then at some point, I was confused as to which sister was the main character. Like, initially, I thought it was Emily. And I think in the end, I still thought it was Emily. But for a while there in the center, it seemed like Madison had a lot of POV time. And I'm like, well, hell, is this Madison's story or is this Emily's story? Like, whose story is it? So what do you think about that?
I felt the same way. And I think that might have been that red herring Miss Elliott was trying to throw at us, because each one of them, as I read the synopsis, does have a secret. Well, each sister basically has a secret.
Yeah.
But Madison, they did give her a lot of POV, and I was confused because, to me, her only importance up until the point where she got that, her a lot of her screen time, I want to say, she was good friends with Lindsay, which Lindsay is one of the people murdered in the story. So I was confused, and then we learned a little more about Madison, but I was still confused because all she did was find something. In my opinion. She found the watch that her father, which was a prized possession, and she was good friends with Lindsay, and she dressed cute. So, yeah, I was confused.
I think Madison, for me, was the catalyst for us to find out stuff without exposing it to Emily. So by that, I mean how, Madison would talk to one of the aunts while she's making coffee.
Right.
And one of, the little aunt that, she's losing her mind a little bit. So we got a whole bunch of information
through the aunt.
Yeah, through that conversation. So I kind of feel like she was, how in books, there's like a plot device where we get info dumped in the way that someone else is learning about something. So instead of the author just like kind of just explaining it, we're learning with a character. And I feel like that was Madison's function, is to be the person learning everything.
And I would agree. I would agree. She discovered a lot of evidence. She learned things along the way. So yeah, I would agree. She was the catalyst. But it did become confusing with whose story is this? Because I still believe it is. I still believe it was Emily's, but like you said, your explanation does explain a lot of her role, Madison's role in this story.
Yeah.
So I'll agree with that.
Yeah. And I mean, Madison, her character kind of changed a little bit as well. Like in the beginning, through Emily's eyes, she seemed like, and you said this, like kind of a bratty little sister. But I feel like eventually she didn't really feel so bratty to me, but she was kind of boring. And I think that was because of all the exposition that was going on. But I don't know. In the end, I guess, I don't know. I wanted to connect to these sisters in some kind of way. You know, I'm the oldest of three and we're all sisters. So you too.
Yep.
And so I thought, you know, I would be able to connect to the secret keeping part. And, you know, I just wanted, I don't know. Okay.
I'm the oldest of three too, and all sisters. Granted, Tara was the oldest, which I think kind of maybe threw us a little bit, but I didn't connect to the sisters. Now I did understand the protecting a little bit of Tara, but I'm not sure. Well, yeah, I think I do. I think I do connect with the protecting of Tara because no one wants their sister to be a part of the murder of their father. And I can't remember what age they were. So, and then to find out that your mother commits suicide right after that. So that's like so tragic. But I did have a hard time connecting with them as characters. I just kind of went willy-nilly with them, like, come on, story, come on. But I didn't feel anything for anyone, not at all.
I kind of agree. So let me go back to your comment about ages. I feel like these were the ages when the father was killed, just based on me trying, I guess, piece things together. So I feel like Tara was like 15 or 16 or maybe even 17. She was very close to 18 when she left.
Right, because they said 20 years later.
Right. So she was definitely older. And I remember Emily saying, or Madison saying something about Emily being 9 years old at some point. Okay. And so obviously Madison was a few years younger than that. So there was a significant age, gap between Emily and Tara, I think. At least 5 years, 5 to 7 years. It's kind of hard to say exactly. But as far as like connecting to the sisters, I was kind of with you in that I didn't really connect to them. And I could not understand, being that they were left alone, to kind of like fend for themselves. Of course, they had their aunts, but Emily and Madison should have been closer, in my opinion. I did not grasp why they were kind of. Now, I know Madison said, I didn't want to be hurt, so I blocked people off. But my God, woman, you're a full-grown adult right now. If I find that my sister is hiding some important stuff from me, I'm going to confront you. I'm going to be like, why do you have this watch? What are you doing? I saw you outside. Did you, I would not be lollygagging around. I don't understand that. I mean, sisters are closer than that, even if you hate each other. I don't think the way they it was weird. It just didn't seem true to me.
No. And you're 30 years old. You're not that 10-year-old girl anymore. You're still sneaking in your sister's room, going through her stuff. You're still going through her stuff. And I thought that was the weirdest thing. You're going through her stuff, and then you hear her come in, and you hide, and you come back in. And I think that's when I had already put in my mind that she's a bratty little sister, and she's whiny. You're a full-grown woman. And then, but I don't know. To end all, I had a hard time connecting with them. And I don't know, they led a sheltered life. And I feel like they never grew up. And even though Emily married, left, and returned, they still had that sheltered kind of, feeling. And I get that, that the aunts and her mother, they were close, which I had a hard time with Madison. And I kind of get it now that I say it out loud, that they lost that connection, because the connection between the two sisters was the mom. And now that mom is gone, that kind of like bond, mom, because didn't Emily say, Mom, she, even though she was a little bipolar or whatever they wanted to say she had some mental health issues even prior to the husband dying.
Mm-hmm.
Mom would do fun stuff with us. Mom would let us take off, from school, and we'd play. And then all of a sudden mom is gone. And now we're stuck being raised by the aunts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was what, 3 kooky, the aunts were kooky.
They were weird. They
dressed alike. And I was like, when I heard that, I'm like, okay, so maybe they're triplets. No. They were just 3 kooky sisters.
Yeah.
And they were just kooky. So here you have these 2 sisters who are basically orphans raised by some kooky aunts in this town where they were supposedly rich.
Them. Yeah, everyone hates them.
They're eccentric.
Yeah.
With a history of owning the biggest logging company in the town that went broke. So I think she had a lot of storylines in the story, and she did try to connect them, but there was some kind of disconnect in that relationship between sisters. And I get why she tried to do that, because that's why they kept the secrets. If you have the sisters not having a connection, you're going to keep secrets. If you don't have a relationship with them, you're going to keep a secret.
See, I think that's opposite for me.
Really?
I feel like if I don't have a relationship, it's whatever. I'm telling. If I think you did something and we hate each other already, but if we're close, and I'm going to keep your secrets to the grave, and you're going to keep mine.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I wanted to believe that relationship between the 3 of them, or the 2 of them at least, until, and I kept waiting how long before Tara shows back up. And when she did, I was kind of not really satisfied with that meeting as well.
It was disappointing. But can I go back to the relationship part?
Yes.
So even though they didn't have that close relationship, so if you hated your sister so much and you knew this secret, who would you tell? Would you tell the police that I think my sister was a part of the murder of my father? Or I remember seeing, because the case was solved, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm.
I was because in their minds, they're young kids, that the person who killed their father is in jail. So it's like, who do you tell? I saw my sister out there when the fire started. And then it's like, I saw, so it's like, who do you tell? You can't tell the kooky sister, the kooky aunts. Can't tell Tara. Tara's gone. Like, Tara, what the hell were you doing there? Because she left. And then as a middle sister, who is now basically the big sister, or she's now the older sister. The middle sister is now really the older sister, because Tara is gone. So she's taken on the role of big sister, who's trying to protect Madison. So, it's like,
as adults, I don't think they would tell anyone, but honestly, I'm surprised as children, as a 9-year-old and 6-year-old or whatever, the youngest would even have I guess, what is the word I'm looking for? Have the insight to keep that kind of secret at that young age. If someone says, "Oh, what happened? How did the fight?" When you start asking questions, I feel like a 6 or 7-year-old would just say, not thinking that there was anything to it, but you just say,
Oh, I saw Emily. She was out there.
yeah,
Oh, yeah, because they will slip up and say some things.
right. So I'm like, well, how?
Mama was in the house. Tell him I'm not here. My mom says she's not here.
Right, right.
You're right. So, but yeah, that I do understand, but it just, yeah. And I think we are just thinking,
How we
wait.
would think.
Yeah. And
How
this
we
is
would
those
think.
moments where the author should get some good beta readers because the flow was not good here. I was just waiting for that moment for me to just be like, yes. And I was just, but it kept me wanting to read because, like you said, I was waiting for this last sister because at first it's like, is she dead?
Mm-hmm.
I almost thought she was the one body found in the park with
Oh.
Crazy Alice.
Mm-hmm.
That's who I thought until they said it was a Black girl.
Yeah.
So there was a disconnect for me, a big disconnect.
Okay, so I do kind of want to switch gears and talk a little bit about Emily and what's his name? What's that?
Xander?
And Xander. Okay. Special Agent Xander. Whenever I read these kind of books, initially, I prefer not to see a romance in these kind of books. That's just my preference.
Mm-hmm.
If one comes about and it makes sense and it's believable, I will accept it. But in this case, I kind of felt like it was all of a sudden like love at first sight for them. Like they spotted each other and now we have a chemistry and I must protect her. And I just felt like it was odd in the setting.
Forced.
Yeah.
I felt like it was a forced. It didn't flow naturally. We had to constantly hear Madison say, "Oh, you could just see the sparks flying off of them. Oh, look at them. They don't even know. I can see it. It's so obvious." And then even Tara mentions it, and then even the aunts mention it, and it's like, okay, you guys had thrown in romantic suspense into this mystery. And then we even had to hear from Ava, Xander's partner. She even had to say, no, you can't interview Emily because you like her. I could tell you like her. You're too close to this person. So it was, she didn't write it in a way that we could tell that those two liked each other.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of felt Xander, because he kind of mentioned how she was beautiful and blah, blah, blah. But as far as Emily liking him, I didn't see that except for through the eyes of Madison, the aunt, and Ava.
Right.
But we had to hear from everyone else that Emily was attracted to him.
See, okay. So at first, let me just say, when I thought this was a standalone title, I was kind of more accepting of the author doing it this way. But the minute I realized it was a series, which it didn't pop up on Goodreads for me right away until after I was almost done with it. And I went back to look and I'm like, oh, it's series. Then I felt like it was done wrong. And this is why. I can give you a perfect example of a romance starting to be integrated into a procedural. This feels like it's going to be a procedural situation.
Yeah.
Right. And that was Two Girls Down by Luisa Luna. Did you read that one?
Yes.
Done right.
Well.
Yes, you get the vibes. They're not saying it, but you feel it. And it's on the horizon, but they're both kind of broken. So who knows when it's going to come?
Right.
And I feel like it's just like any procedural on TV. Once the couple gets together, it's the end. It's over. So that is the exciting part, is waiting for them to come together and you have to make that struggle hard. This was pushed so fast that I feel like I thought it was, it had to be a standalone, how quickly they were pushing this relationship through.
Yeah. Right, because he kissed her and said, when this is over, I want to date you. Well, it's going to be over, and it's like, oh, okay.
Right.
It's going to be over, click, 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 soon.
Right.
At the end of this book.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, at the end of the book, they made plans. Oh, I'm going to go stay with, Tara so we can be close together and date. I'm like, what? I don't.
So what are you going to do next then, if this is going to be a series?
Maybe they'll just be together and he's going to work with his partner. I don't know. It seems like that means the main character is changing, because I felt like the special agent, while they both had, points of view running alongside, I didn't think he was the focal point. I didn't feel like it was going to be a procedural when I was reading this book. I didn't feel that. Now that I know that it will be,
right,
it's like it changed things not in a good way.
Right, because you're right, he wasn't the main character. So now if this is going to be a romance, and it's no longer, because we thought it was Emily's story, but if this is going to be a series, a mystery procedural series, Xander should have been the main focal point of this story. And I didn't feel like he was. I felt like he was a supporting actor, if we're going to go into movies.
Yeah.
That's what I felt like. He was a supporting actor to Emily.
I agree.
So, and I don't see where, if this is going to be a series, where is Emily going to be in this, in series 2 or 3 or 4?
I don't know.
Her story is over, in my point.
Honestly, they can't ride shotgun. They're not in the same business. She doesn't have any experience. That's why I feel like,
you know what? Her husband
used to be a cop.
Yep. I wonder if they're going to, well, I don't know. We're getting ahead of ourselves. But she did know some things. Maybe she was trying to drop those little nuggets. Huh?
Maybe she'll join the academy or something. I don't know.
I know.
I don't know.
Yeah, I struggle. I mean, yeah.
And honestly, it looked from the outside like it was right up my alley. Like, you see this amazing cocktail or dessert or whatever. The ingredients look right. It looks good. You take a sip or a bite, you're like, oh, that doesn't taste right.
Too acidic. As I drink my coffee because I'm tired. Too strong.
Yeah.
It really was. Like you said, reading the synopsis, when you sent it to me, I was like, oh, yeah, this is something that we could work with. Now, I can tell you what I did like about this story. I did like how they threw in some history, about Oregon, about Portland, and the racism there. And I kind of knew a little bit because I've heard it before, but for her to kind of go in depth about this, and they had the little historian in town. I did like hearing about Shanghaiing because I've heard that term before, but I didn't go and look it up. And she threw that in there. I did like the history. I did like learning new things, and she wasn't afraid to break it down. No. So I did like learning something new about Oregon besides it being a hipster town.
I didn't know that Oregon was the only white-only state. I mean, I'm like, what?
Yeah, that I will say was the one. Well, I say one. At least one thing I did like about this story is learning, about how they had the bars that they would have where they would Shanghai these people who came to town looking for work. And I almost thought Isaac was shanghaied at one time. Is it Isaac? Was that the young
Of the
boy?
kid, yeah. I thought
Yeah.
something. Okay, I feel like that was a misdirect. With him,
Yeah.
because when he was, for example, when he was in the restaurant and he saw the special agent, he went up to him and said, "Hey, I seen old boy over here," and he's like, "Why didn't you tell the police?" And he's like,
Hmm.
"I'm telling you." So
Right.
I got the vibe that he doesn't trust the police. The police are racist. He doesn't want to deal with the crazy police.
Right.
But that didn't really come to fruition.
I
Like
know.
he was,
They dropped the ball. She dropped the
yeah,
ball. She
yeah,
dropped the
like
ball.
the chief hung, or the sheriff or whatever, chief of police or sheriff, I don't know what he was, sheriff.
Sheriff.
He hung out with those guys, but he wasn't a part of those guys like
Right.
that.
Yeah. But my thing is you're going to tell me that this young boy knew something that
Mhm.
he didn't want to tell the police? Not the mayor.
Right.
Not the mayor. He didn't want to talk to the police because he knew that they were shady.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I think you're right. That was a big misdirect right there.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
I have something that I wrote down, and I'll see if you noticed it, and I may be wrong. But I thought when they found Cynthia Green's body in the beginning, when they found her in the forest with Alice, that she was 17 years old when she went missing. And then later on in the story, they said she was 19 years old. Did you notice that?
I did notice, but okay, so after you said it, I did notice that, because they did say 19 toward the end, and I
Yeah,
feel like 17 sounds right in my mind.
right. Because they said a 17-year-old girl went missing with her. She's on vacation with her parents, and then later on they were saying she was 19 years old, and I was like, okay, some editing there, they missed that. But like you said, when you have audio in this, I wasn't able to bookmark. If I was reading it, I probably could just, document it or whatever. But I was just wondering, did you notice that little editing flaw as well?
I didn't notice it first time around, but after you mentioned it, it feels like something that I've heard. I definitely remember 19 in the second time they talked about her.
Right. Because I don't know. I mean, I know a few 19-year-olds that will go on vacation with their parents, and not to
Not
say that
many.
it's not. Yeah, because you get to a certain age, you're like, I'm about done, parents. Unless we go in Vegas and granted, it's a long time ago. Well, not too long ago. No, it's not that long
Well, I
ago.
mean,
But
20 years ago now would be the 90s. Is that right?
yeah. But I mean, even my kids,
Late 90s?
at a certain point when we would go on vacations, and if they were still at home, can we just stay?
That's the window where they don't want to deal with you. So if it's like a 28-year-old or 27-year-old, yeah, I can see them trying to get a free trip with their parents.
Thank you. Free meal, free travel.
Yeah.
Lodging. But the 19-year-old, like, I could be doing so much more besides hanging out with my mom in Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, who wants to just go hang out in Oregon?
I know.
That's not any teenager's dream of vacation.
No. Because I can't remember where they came from. Were they in Oregon too? Or just another part?
Whatever their main city is there. I feel like Portland. I think they said they were from Portland.
Right, because this town was Astoria.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think we didn't, the murder, do we need to discuss that?
Well, let's talk about the murder and then talk about the Klansmen. So I gotta say, I feel like I figured out most of it before I got to it. I wrote down like when things like really gelled for me. So I think things absolutely gelled when Emily said she found the watch, So I said, oh, so this is the same group. So when Emily said she found the watch, first I thought, it's not one person. I thought it's a group of people. And then when she
Right.
said she found the watch, I said, oh, they're back. They're back.
Yep.
And then I'm like, well, why would they murder one of their own? That was my question. Why would they do
Right.
that? But then they addressed that because I guess he was bad, but not that bad.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So I did like how that came together, like, seeing, the history, looking through the photos, and then they start recognizing people, and then they start recognizing, hey, that hand signal they're doing.
Yeah, that was at Naval Academy signal. I was like, oh, I see what you're doing there, Miss Elliott.
Yes. And then with the watch, with the phrase on the back, they're like, well, that phrase is actually used by.
Right.
It's like, wow.
They're not wearing hoods now, but they still partake. And then I think what Emily mentioned, she would go to these meetings with her dad, and the guys would basically be skinheads. She basically said. So, and the coins, and the coins were left with Cynthia, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, because even Madison kind of remembered the coins that weren't money. And then that's when she remembered those as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy because when they brought up those coins, and they did mention this later, or the author did, I'm like, I remember that from like the Masons, because when I was a young buck, I was very young, I dated this guy for a millisecond that was in the Masons. And he had this stupid coin. And I was like, what the hell? You're in like some crazy shit right now. I can't deal with you. And he was crazy. Honestly, he was crazy. So I realized, I mean, not saying that all Masons are crazy or anything like that, but I just remember distinctly seeing this coin, and I met some of the people he knew, and I just got this real weird vibe. So I'm like, oh, that's what triggered a memory for me that I had long forgotten. I'm like, oh, that coin.
I know what that is.
Oh God. But yeah.
But that's about the time I figured it out too, that okay, I think, and I we kind of knew it had something to do with race relation, with Nathan and Lindsay being a mixed couple, an interracial couple, Nathan being a black man hung, and Lindsay being a white woman. That we knew it had to be something racially motivated. So to find the watch in those words, it did put things into perspective. I think the thing that threw us is, not threw me. Emily, the beginning of the story, Emily finds them, and I remember her, like, I think they mentioned where she basically used her dress or her apron, I think, because she was at work, to open up the door. She didn't want to touch anything. So I was like, what is she doing? I mean, granted, she didn't want to put any fingerprints, but I was a little thrown off because I just wasn't sure, because we didn't know her history about her being an a wife of a cop, or, well, the ex of a cop. So, but yeah, I did start piecing it together with the watch, the words, something else. Oh, when Dad got angry at somebody driving behind the car.
Oh, he called this black lady a bitch or something.
Right, but it was you could it was some other terms besides being a bitch that, yeah. So, and then those crazy brothers that they hired to kill Nathan, I'm just like, oh God.
There was just so much going on, like finding out that the father and the mother had a very controlling relationship, that the family and pretty much everyone in town knew that he was racist and had anger issues, and no one said anything to them. They just let them think that their parents were happy-go-lucky. It's like, why would you?
Oh, because you know what? Because it's okay that you're racist. You're still a good person. Because isn't that what the hairstylist said, or the lady at the boutique? Your dad still loved you, and granted, he did love her, but he was still a good person. even though he was a racist.
Oh, God.
He was still a good person, and he loved you girls.
Yes, even racists love their children.
Right, but that's how they justified really looking past. Or even the sister said, as long as he didn't do this.
Mm-hmm.
So, everyone accepted.
But it
as long
was
as
only...
he didn't do, there were certain things he couldn't do. He can hang, he could call him the N-word, as long as he didn't do these things.
And I can't imagine that he would just go on forever in that marriage with his daughters not learning the same thing.
Yeah. Well, the mom tried not to let him take the girls to the meeting, and it looks like, well, we don't know if Tara went or not, but we do know Emily attended a meeting, coloring, and she said she blocked out some things, which, she may have, but some of the things in this story, we'll just break it down, were not believable in my point of view. But I've never lived as a white person in an all white town with these type of things. So I don't know.
Right.
But from my point of view of reading this book, something didn't gel right. The flow was it wasn't believable.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with you. I don't think it was I don't think it was bad per se. It just wasn't good either. Yeah. I just had much higher expectations. And again, guys, we've been reading these books for over a year now. I feel like it's been over a year.
Yeah.
So we
read this outside of each other. Before we came together with Buddy Reads, this is our wheelhouse.
Yes.
We love to read. So we're not, as we said before, we're not new to this.
No, we are thriller, mystery people. We love it. I listen to true crime all the time.
Yes.
I mean, so to me, to us, we feel like we're not sold.
No, I was not. And when I asked you if you were finished, and I knew this is how we were like kindred spirits with this. We hadn't texted each other at all. And I was like, I already know. I already know how she feels about this book. I don't know if that's how you felt, but I was like, I already know. So when I
did think, I'm like, it's been awful quiet. It must not be good.
Oh God, that's exactly how I felt. So I said, I had her for Tamara, and I'm like, I know we got to pick our cast. And I was just like, so who are we going to pick? You're like, when did you finish? Like, I finished last week. You were probably like, and you haven't said anything yet?
No, I was like, wow. Like, I literally started like this past weekend. I started on Sunday. So we're recording on a Tuesday. So I started Sunday afternoon. I was like, well, okay, I'll get going. And I was doing my little diamond painting. I started doing that.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, I just sat there for a couple hours, and I'm like, oh, by the time I was done doing that on Monday, I'm like, well, I can finish it on Monday. But then things were starting to drag. And I'm like, oh God, will I be finished? Oh, help me, please. I have to get this finished. And then I did finish Monday night, but
yeah, it did. It had some dragging moments. So, but okay. I don't know what else to say.
I don't know. I mean, it was, I don't know. I almost wished it was a serial killer situation instead of like a racial situation, but
yeah, it would have been, before, because I know we have to get to our narrator. Another thing that I think she or misdirect or dropped the ball on was Tara visiting her father's killer twice. They never addressed, why are you visiting the man, even though you know he didn't kill your father, because you know the mayor killed your father. Why did you visit him twice? What was the reason behind that? Yeah. And the only thing that Kendra Elliott did with that was, that's how we find out where Tara lives.
Yes.
That, it was like I just saw so many moments where she could have went even further, I think, it was just some other moments where she just dropped the ball. And I think that could have been something greater or something that could have lifted this story. Because that's what I was waiting for. Because all of a sudden you find Tara. She's visited the killer of her, her father's killer twice. And all we find out is that she's living a new life as an alcoholic with a dead husband, yada, yada, yada.
And then the author also threw in about Tara that she was sleeping with the old ass mayor. I'm like, why?
Oh my God. I'm sorry. Y'all just saw that. But oh my God. I was like, really? That's all you could do? What the?
Why? Yeah.
Now that right there, the father should have killed. That wasn't even necessary. She could have kept that.
Like, what was the point of that exactly? I mean, they tried to say that because you got a free pass to not be murdered because you were sleeping with him. Is that what I feel like that's what was being said. Oh, you guys were sleeping together, so he told you to leave instead of killing you, but you were young and scared. He could have told you to leave and you would have left. The way he threatened your family, you would have left anyway.
All right. You did not have to add that Freebird was sleeping with your, how many men have hit on me?
Oh my God. Yeah.
She was just throwing stuff at the wall. It seemed like at the end, throwing stuff at the wall to see if it would stick. And I'm like, who read your book?
I know.
Which beta readers did you have? Because somebody should have said, take this out, take that out, drag this out some more, delve more into this part, because I think it would have been a much better story.
I agree.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. I mean, I feel like it had the bones to be a really great story. It just wasn't executed the way it should have been.
No.
Okay. Well, I guess we can just leave that there for now. We're going to take a quick break. And when we return, we are going to talk about the audiobook narrators. We are going to give our ratings. And last but not least, we are going to do our movie fantasy casting. Stay with us. Today's episode is brought to you by the Shelf Addiction merch store. Check out all the bookish t-shirts, notebooks, mugs, and more. Don't miss out on these original designs, perfect for any book nerd. Support the podcast and visit shelfaddiction.com/merch and pick up your next favorite bookish item. Okay, guys, we are back. Thanks for staying here. And we're going to talk about the narrators. There were two narrators, Cassandra Campbell and Michael Naramore. Classy, what did you think about the narrators?
As I told you before, Cassandra Campbell, she is one of my favorites. Well, she used to be. I've ran across some more who probably taken her place. After I listened to her voice again, I'm like, okay, she's okay. But I did enjoy her. I think she did a good job with the women's voices. I even think she did a good job with the male voices. She did a great job representing Madison being a little whiny. The guy, what's his name? Michael? Navarro?
Michael, I mean, it's Mikael, but I think it's still pronounced Michael.
Or Macau.
I don't know.
Yeah. I did not care that much for. I felt like, gosh, you know what his voice reminded me of? I'm a little older than you are. It kind of reminded me of those movies we had to watch as students, like science movies, and the narrator would be, narrating whatever is going on in the science film, I'll say, yeah, I just felt like he didn't have, God, and maybe his voice is more for a procedural, but I just felt like his voice didn't have the nitty gritty, or maybe some of that, because this book, I guess the book was trying to be sort of dark, with the clan and the hanging, and I felt like he stayed pretty even keeled. I don't think he I don't think his voice changed that much to me. I felt like it was kind of flat.
Okay.
And I didn't get the points where with him it was like, okay, some excitement is coming, or just a few times, not all the time. But I just felt like he reminded me of the narrator in some old science movies I had to watch.
Okay. Well, all right. So with Cassandra Campbell, for me, early on, like that first day I was listening, I don't know if I just noticed it because I wasn't doing anything but putting diamonds on a canvas. What? But I heard a lot of like mouth and breath, like her breath was kind of.
She does.
I'm like, wait a minute, I hear a lot of that. And then eventually it kind of faded. And I don't know if that's because I got used to it, so I didn't hear it anymore, or it was edited better, or it went away, or she stopped doing it.
Okay.
But I know at one point it was very noticeable. And I'm like, why is she breathing like da 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 da?
She did a lot with Emily, with Madison a lot. It was almost like that sexy siren, kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, oh gosh, that was kind of annoying to me. But like I said, eventually it either faded or I got used to it. I don't know which way it went, but it went away eventually. Now for the male narrator, I thought he was okay. I think that I liked that it was broken up by a different voice for him. I think that was good, that we had the two contrasting voices to break up the two female voices from the same narrator. But I don't remember anything spectacular about his voice.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, my opinion of having Cassandra is one of my favorites. And that's probably just because I've listened to more audio people, and I was like, oh, she used to be one of my favorites, and now it's like, she's okay. Yeah, she's okay.
Your taste evolves over time. So just like when you were young and you thought, oh, nasty, sweet, really sickly sweet wine was good. Now you're like, no.
Right?
That's disgusting.
My palate.
Right. Don't give me any sweet wine. We're going to fight. Please don't.
See, I still got to do sweet. I can't do red because of the tannins, but but I find that I don't like it as sweet. I could do a little, but I can't.
Just drinking Manischewitz like, oh, it's so good.
Oh, that's got to be worse. So you know that's communion wine.
I know.
Right?
Look, oh my God. Anyway, now I'm a connoisseur of wine and I drink good wine.
And your palate has changed.
Yes, it has evolved, just like my taste for books and narrators as well.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So let's rate this thing before we do our fantasy casting. I will let you do the honors and you can start. Drum roll.
I gave it a 3. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it, but I gave it a 3. I liked it.
Okay. Same. Yeah. I'm with you. I feel like our job on this podcast is to dissect the book and to look at it with a critical eye. That does not mean we hated it. And that's how I feel here. It was fine.
Yeah.
It was just fine. So for just fine for me falls right in the middle. So I gave it a 3.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So then when I started doing the fantasy casting, I was like, oh, okay.
Now that.
Okay.
Yeah. That's when you begin to see some things. Excuse me, some authors go into much detail, and you visualize your characters or your cast immediately, and then you get to something like this, and you're like, I darn near threw some people together today. I'm just gonna be honest.
Girl, me too. I'm like, I remember them talking about Tara having this blonde hair, and then it was dark and short. That was the thing that stood out the most. But at this point, I mean, that's why, you'll see later, I just picked someone blonde because that's her natural color, blonde hair.
Right.
But other than that, I mean, I tried to pick people that were all over 30 because they're all at least 30 years old, I feel like.
Right.
And then I tried to pick people that I just think would fit in the roles, although I don't know. We'll have to see how we did, because I did not think of Xander as a cute guy in any kind of way.
I was trying to make do with what I read.
Because I'm like, oh, that's what.
And I said, if we're gonna make this movie, if we're gonna make this movie, and I had to go, he's gonna be fine.
Girl, look, y'all. Okay. Let's start with him. Let's start with Xander. Go ahead. Tell him who you picked.
I had to read this. Xander is going to be fine, and Xander is Mr. Henry Cavill.
Okay, look, now I'm visualizing the Witcher garb, very sexy Superman. I'm like, that is not Xander, dude. That guy.
Told you what I did, right? Didn't I tell you what I did? I was just throwing people together.
You're like, who do I want to see on the screen?
Thank you. Because last time we said, if this goes into a movie, they're just going to go get some indie people and some people we don't know. They're going to do this movie. I'm picking who I want because I want to sell tickets.
All right. That will sell some tickets. His body will get people in the seats. Yes, it will.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay. Yes. So I went kind of polar opposite of that, and I picked somebody that looks kind of geeky, a little dorky, but he's cool people. And that's Nathan Fillion. And you guys know him from a bunch of stuff. He's been in everything. Y'all know who he is. He show up at Comic-Cons and stuff.
Ah, okay. So I'm not familiar with him.
You're not? Oh my gosh.
No. He looks familiar, but I can't.
Okay, so I think he was most known for what was that show? Firefly. But I watched him the most on what was it? Castle. He was on Castle. It was
Yep. Now I know who you're talking about now. Okay.
Yeah, and now he's also on this show called The Rookie. I like him as an actor. He's fun. I like him. Yeah.
And he looks, in this picture, I don't think I've ever seen him with a shadow. He has a little mustache, he has a mustache, but it's a shadow.
Yeah, I figured I'd make him look more distinguished. Pick a distinguished picture because he's supposed to be a FBI agent, not looking frumpy.
Henry, I'm sorry. My Xander. Okay, I like your Xander. My Xander is selling tickets, baby.
Your Xander is selling tickets. He is.
Yeah, I do like Castle, and I did like Castle when it was on, and I've watched it, and I enjoyed Castle. So, Okay.
All right. So moving on for Emily, who we think is the main character, or we thought was the main character. I don't know. Who did you pick, Classy?
I picked Emily Deschanel. And she is known from Bones. I can't remember her character name because I haven't watched it in a while, but she was the forensic something. She was on Bones.
Okay, yeah. She was, I don't know what she did, but we all know Bones. We know her.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm down for it. I like it. I thought it was a good pick, honestly. I think I could see her acting in that role. So yeah, I think it was good.
Yeah, because Emily sometimes was a little cold, and from Bones, she would sometimes be a little, because her social skills were a little off a bit until her and Bones, came around to each other. She came around.
And what happened once they got together? The show went.
Sure did.
Same with Castle. They got together and the show tanked. I mean, you put the couple together too soon, and it's like the kiss of death for procedurals. You can't do it. What are you doing? So, okay. Okay.
Let the struggle stay struggle.
Yes, let them just look at each other and fawn and keep having missed opportunities. That's what it's supposed to be.
Yep.
And when you're done ready to call it quits, then you let them have their happily ever after.
Yep.
You guys listen to us. We know what we're saying. Okay. So I picked Kate Beckinsale. I think I mispronounced her name. Beckinsale. There we go.
Yeah.
There's no D in there. So I just like how she looks. I like how she looks. I know she's played really hardcore characters. I can see her being kind of just fitting into this role. I can see her doing it. It's not like there was anything extra particular about this character that almost anybody couldn't do.
Right.
So
right.
I just thought she fit.
Right. And I think they tried to say she was so beautiful, but then that was from the point of view of Xander too. So, and Kate is a beautiful girl.
She is beautiful
too. And I agree. I can see her playing Emily. I like her.
All right, let's move on to the baby sister, Madison. Who did you pick?
I picked Zoe Deschanel. Sisters.
Yeah. Sisters in life, real life and on the screen.
Yeah, I was like, oh, two sisters.
You
don't even have to worry about them looking alike. Well, not all sisters look alike, but anyway, these two look alike. And I don't even think in the story that matter of fact, Emily and Madison didn't look alike. But oh well, they look alike on my cast. Yeah. I think Madison and Tara looked more alike. If I'm not mistaken.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it. I'm like, I don't think they've ever been in anything together. That would be fun to see, I think.
Yeah.
So I picked Alexandra Daddario, and I don't know her very well outside of like Baywatch and San Andreas.
Okay.
And I just picked her because I thought she looked like she could fit into that family. She's attractive looking because I feel like all the girls in that family are attractive looking.
Yeah.
I think that was like a staple for them. And, when you mentioned to me how bratty you thought she was.
Yeah, when I saw this pic, I was like, yeah, she
could pull it off.
Yep. And I could see her in a tutu and some heels. Yep.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's move on to Sheriff Greer. We picked him because I guess he also had a good amount of face time. So who did you pick, Classy?
I picked Jim Carrey. And the reason why, because I know most people think Jim Carrey, comedy. I just felt like when I was listening to the book, he was like a Keystone Cop. He wasn't up to date on any of, the new things. He was slow with, just some of the newer procedures and different things like that. He was a little gaunt. He was, just kind of, I just saw Jim Carrey. I think that's probably the biggest thing that I could see, like I could just see the faces. How he talked to his deputies, get your butt over here, and how he talked to Billy. And so I just saw Jim Carrey.
Okay. I don't hate it. I think, I think he could do it. Definitely. I think he could do it. And I just went with someone kind of obvious. And by obvious, I mean, I picked Christopher Maloney. And I mean, my goodness, he's been on Law and Order forever, since like 1999 or something.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
a good pick.
Yeah, I'm like, clearly he can totally play a sheriff.
Yes, he could. And that's a good picture too.
He might be typecast, but I don't care. I know he can do it.
Right. Yeah, he can. That's a good picture too that you pulled for him.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, last but not least, let's do the oldest sister, Tara Mills. Who did you pick?
I picked Emily Blunt, and while reading this book, before Tara even came into the picture, I saw Emily. Gosh, her name. All these dang Emilys. Now that I think about that, I saw Emily Blunt as the first as Emily, not Tara at first, because I don't know. I could just see her kind of being the tough older sister. But then I think when I started realizing the age of Emily and Madison, that Miss Blunt would probably be a better pick for Tara. So, yeah. And I could see her being, well, she's already pretty thin in this picture, but how they said she was really thin, because I almost thought she had cancer.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I'm like, is she dying? I'm like,
yeah, that's what I thought. So I was like, I can kind of see her, with her hair just bluntly cut and looking gaunt. So, and
instead she's just an alcoholic, which was crazy.
Yeah. Liver gone.
Yeah. Something. Yeah. Okay, so for me, I picked Kate Winslet. No introduction required. We all know her. We should. Even as far back as the 90s, we all know her.
Yep.
So I just really was looking for that stark blonde hair, somebody that I think could play like the town slut, as she was calling herself. She was calling herself that. Okay. And somebody that I can just see saying bye to her family to try to save them. I feel like she could pull it off, and I could see her in the role. I just feel like she could do it.
She's versatile. Very versatile. Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm. I think we both had some really good picks this time around. We usually do.
I do. I think we were. I think we have good cast for each one. We got a Netflix cast. We have a Paramount cast. Either way, I think we're pretty even kill here.
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, if they ever bought rights to this movie, I recommend our casting suggestions, people. If you need us to help you, confirm the people, or, go over that with you and talk you through it, we are available.
We are. I agree.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so that is it. That ends our discussion on The Last Sister. Do you have anything else to add, Classy, before we sign off?
None. Nothing at all.
Okay.
As always, it's a pleasure.
Oh, as always.
Reading with you. It's always a pleasure.
Yes. I concur. All right, guys, that's it for today. If you'd like to talk with us about The Last Sister, you can find us both in the Shelf Addiction Official Facebook group. Until next time, happy reading. Take care, guys.
Bye.
If you enjoyed today's book chat episode and would like to show your support, there are a few things you can do. Head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a positive 5-star review. You can follow me on Twitter at Shelf Addiction. Most importantly, you can share this podcast with friends and family that enjoy all things bookish, including author interviews. Thank you for listening, and until next time, happy reading.
You ever hear something and know the world will never be the same?
Houston, we have liftoff.
Well, wait until you hear this one. Half price coffee. That's right. Get into McDonald's weekdays before 10:30 a.m. for any size premium roast coffee or iced coffee. Both made with 100% Arabica beans, both half the price. Good is brewing. And that's the sound of your morning changing. Limited time only. May not be combined with any offer or combo meal at participating McDonald's.